How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that I have recently hammered into a lot of our inner circle guys, and just a topic of discussion I wanted to open up here in the Tactical Empire for a discussion, because what we're looking at is, what is the easiest thing to change everything in your life? And if you were to answer that, what would you say, do you think? The answer we came up with was being honest, telling the truth 100% of the time, and also following through on your word and what you say you're going to do. So there's studies out there on these high performance CEOs and how frequently they keep their word and how frequently they tell the truth. And they tracked their activities for a period of time, and none of them exceeded 50% of the time. And to me, that was very, very interesting, and just something that goes back to building your leadership qualities, building your quality of integrity. So is it accurate to say that you could reach 100%? I don't know. Is it realistic? I guess, I mean, that's a question you'd kind of have to analyze. But most people, I think, if they were going to actually track themselves on, and keep in mind, this involves a myriad of things. It's what you're saying to other people. It's also the promises that you keep to yourself. And that's where it gets real dicey as far as most people go. Like, what are you telling yourself on a regular basis? And are you telling yourself the truth? And is there a level of follow through with what you say you're going to do to yourself? Because most people only really look at the integrity side of things on basically the promises they're keeping to other people. And so, are you saying things that you don't intend to do or you don't intend to follow through on? When we talk about stacking wins and things like that, um, there's a component to self-talk that is often overlooked, as far as, like, do you say that you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, or you're going to start working out tomorrow, or you're not going to drink this weekend, or whatever it may be. And then you compromise with yourself, because every level of compromise that you make with yourself erodes your personal confidence and the ability to show up at your best and build a level of belief in yourself and personal confidence in your ability to follow through, succeed, and kick ass at all your goals. And throughout life, most of us have spent our time compromising our agreements that we're making with ourselves, and kind of eroding our self-confidence. So there's definitely the way we teach things in the Tactical Empire and the Inner Circle is that, like, it starts with leadership between your ears, and your personal heart, head, and soul, if you will, and then it reverberates out from there. So your effect is from your inner self to your home, your wife, your spouse, your children, and that's your secondary effect that you're having. Then it goes to your business and your teams that you lead, and then out further into your community. So the levels of leadership kind of reverberate out that way. But it all starts with leading yourself well. And so I challenge each and every one of you listening to uh, do a test for a week and see how often you keep your word every single time. Um, Keep a little notebook in your pocket, keep it on your phone, on your notes, or whatever, and decide, figure out how often it is that you actually keep your word and are able to follow through. Because they're two sides of the same coin to an extent. So I was asked on a call, when you're talking about telling the truth 100% of the time, is that the same as following through and doing what you say you're going to do? Because there's empirical evidence based on your actions and your follow through on whether you did what you said you were going to do. But there's not the same level of physical evidence on did you tell the actual truth? And they are different things, but they are similar in nature, and they both build your level of integrity, your reputation, and how you present yourself to the world, and also who will follow you. So, your reputation is a very fragile asset. And so, if you're trying to build something like a business or a family or anything in life, if you're a man worthy of being followed, or a woman worthy of being followed, then you need to keep your commitments, and commitments to yourself, commitments to other people. And over time, if people look at you and you have a long track record of saying, hey, that guy does what he says he's going to do, or that woman does what she says she's going to do all the time, or she'll shoot it straight to me and tell me the answer I need to hear, or excuse me, need to hear regardless of what I want to hear. Right. And so you have to kind of measure your words and ensure that you're paying attention to what you're saying, because what you put out into the universe is what you receive, right? So there's a lot of facets to this particular exercise, in that you do need to tell the truth as much as you possibly can, and you work on that, and you track empirical data over time. Like, I did better this week, I was 75%, and then I'm shooting for 80 next week or whatever, right? um, so there's no judgment based on it, but you do want to improve over time, and then follow through. Because, I mean, a simple example is like, you may tell your kids that you're going to go out to eat or something like that, and then your schedule gets away from you and you don't follow through on the fact that you told them. Like, for us in our family, our core values at their core are um, honesty and truthfulness. And so that has been the it caused a lot of friction in the past when we didn't adhere to that, or I didn't adhere to that, or live up to the standard that I had set for myself or my family. And so for us, that's very important. So when I talk to my kids, I ensure that what I've said is something that I am going to do. And it allows me to be more measured and calm in the way I speak. It has also corrected my behavior over time, in that I'm not so fast to promise things. I'm not so fast to open my mouth, because I know that I have to follow through on that particular thing. And parents out there know how hard that is with kids, because you're generally trying to wheel and deal and negotiate with them at all times. And so it can be a little stressful from that standpoint. So give yourself some grace if that's the only area that you're falling down. But over time, just like building a brick wall, you're building yourself into a confident human being who has a lot of self belief, who has a lot of confidence in themselves, and is a formidable partner, whether it comes to relationships or whether it comes to business. Like, we talk a lot about raising investment capital, and using other people's money, or being a person worthy of someone giving you their hard-earned money with the intention of paying it back. Like, do you have that type of integrity? Are you a person that has earned that level of respect, that someone assumes that if they give you money that you're going to pay them back? That is an important quality to have if you're going to raise capital, right? And so the way you speak and the actions that you take over time are very important, as you're building yourself into this person that is worthy of receiving all of these gifts and the visions that you have for yourself. So we talk about committing to your vision, right? And so when you're committing to your vision, you have to ensure that you're focusing on it consistently over time, right? but I talk about friction and interference and like attracting the wrong energy to you. So if you are a person who is falling down in this area and doesn't have a lot of follow through, doesn't have a lot of fulfillment as far as like what they say they're going to do, they do it, especially with themselves. You're going to struggle to attract the vision that you have for yourself and the chief aim that you have for yourself in life and for your family and the goals that you want to achieve. Because if you can't be a person that can trust yourself, then as much as you think you can mask that from the rest of the universe, you can't. Your results will eventually catch up with you, and you will have impediments from what you truly want, true fulfillment, true wealth, true whatever your vision is. Because you see this experienced by other people where they have a rise in one area of their life, and then it, things are taken from them because they're not well rounded and people of integrity in a full 360 way, if you will. So it's like a leg missing a chair, or excuse me, a chair missing a leg. So you would fall down, right? If you're a chair with one single leg, you're gonna eventually be exposed, and that's kind of what happens when you try to build these big dreams without self belief. Because we all, I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but we can talk about trauma and things like that from our past. And if you don't have a good belief system in what you're doing, or you don't think you're worthy, and you don't think you're deserving of the things that you're trying to attract in life, you're going to struggle to get them. So, like, it starts with you and then it goes out from there, right? So the integrity that you have and the follow through that you have with the promises that you're making. This is why I harp on people all the time to get in shape and to handle their fitness, to make good decisions with what they're consuming. Because if you can't keep those promises with yourself, you can't deal with bigger stuff, obviously, right? And I think your fitness is the easiest way to clear up that initial belief. Like, you are capable of going out and walking every day. You're capable of starting a fitness program. You're capable of getting yourself in shape because you care about yourself. And I mean, we say all the time that I say all the time, you are the asset. Like, when you stop, the music stops. So, like, ultimately, you have to take care of yourself. You have to have enough self respect for the body that you've been given to take care of it so that it lasts as long as it can to produce the results that you're looking for as long as that you can for the people that you care about, right? So that's super important to understand as you're going about this. But building that bulletproof belief system in yourself starts with keeping the promises to yourself. So when you think about that, you're trying to incorporate this into an actual lifestyle. And that lifestyle is one of integrity and one of follow through and one of commitment to improvement, self improvement, and then by design, improving the life of those around you, because you're going to lead them by example. Even if you don't feel like you're touching them, they're watching. They're watching you follow through. They're watching you be successful on a certain level. They're watching the gifts that come into your life as you are consistent and you change the way of thinking about what you're aiming at and what you're trying to do. They become your character over time. People look at you at first and they're like, man, you've changed. And yes, of course you've changed. Hopefully you've changed. Hopefully you're evolving to change all the time. I was telling these guys today that I have been tracking my data on my habits and the things that I think keep me in the rails of self improvement. I've been tracking that for 5 years now. And so I have data for 5 years. And that's empirical evidence of my results and what produces those results. And then when I'm not getting results, I can generally look at data and see why. Right. And so what that leads me to is an ever changing pursuit of improvement, which is like, how can I tweak this by 1 degree? Where are the chinks in my armor? What can I do to improve what I'm doing and my level of focus so I can increase my production? And it's not to the point where it's crazy and I live some sort of boring life that is like dogmatic and I adhere to only this routine. That's not what I do. It allows me to build in a level of freedom with the remainder of my day that most people don't get to experience. Because once I've taken care of my list of stuff, I know that I am good to go as far as continuing to make progress. And now I can go add value in any way that I see fit. I can spend my time in areas that I see fit. And so it really is freeing and gives you a lot of flexibility with your time. People oftentimes mistake it for like a rigid militaristic routine, and it's not that at all. It's not that at all. And so it's quite the opposite, actually. So it's very interesting. One of the things that I ask of each and every one of you is like, think about this. Are you the same person in the dark as you are in the light? Right? Oftentimes you talk about people like that, especially like influencers and things. Like you meet them in person, and are they the same person you perceive them to be online or you thought they were going to be? And a lot of times they're not, supposedly. But um, I think it's important to be the same person consistently, regardless of who you are. I mean, one of my mentors, Ryan Stewman, says, imagine that you're on webcam 100% of the time, right? We live in a technological world. Like it's an easy thing to conceptualize. I mean, some of us would think that there's certain agencies that are watching you 100% of the time, no matter what. Uh, but that's a story for another day. Um, but imagine that and then conceptualize that like whatever you're doing right now, if the world saw it, or if somebody you cared about saw it or you respected, like how would you feel about that situation, right? And that really changes your behavior. I mean, it doesn't change a lot of your behavior if you're on the straight and narrow already, but like if you look at things like that and you aspire to be a person of respect and integrity and things like that, and those values are important to you, then like that's just a temperature check on how you're behaving, right? And there's going to be in situations where we're not keeping our word for certain reasons, right? Like I talked about taking my kids to dinner or something. If I open my mouth too early and then we've got other commitments that night and I miss that, right? That is an actual lie as I see it. If I told them that I was going to do something and then for whatever reason I'm like, oh well, I've got this call tonight, I can't do it. Um, Most would say that's probably a feasible excuse, but I did say I was going to do it. So it's a commitment that I made. Um, so, like, that would just be a simple example of a time that you may fall down, right? And if you do, one of the important lessons that I try to teach is that I try to teach the lesson behind when I fall down to my children, because I think it's important to expose them to my failures and my lack of follow through in that case, right? And what it does is it exposes them to understanding that I'm not perfect, that I'm still growing, that I'm working on these different aspects of myself, and it's okay for them to fail. It's okay for them to admit that maybe things didn't go the way they thought they would, or they didn't do something that was in integrity with what we wanted them to do. And to accept that and own that responsibility, teach a lesson on it, which is what I do, not necessarily what they're doing, but being honest and owning up to it is important. And then accepting it and moving on is the final step, right? Like, because each of us is a flawed human being, and that I've never met one that's not. So ultimately, the acceptance behind that and the empathy that we're out here just doing the best we can, trying to improve, is what it's about. And that goes back to your self image and the belief that you have in yourself, giving yourself the grace and empathy to move on from that. And today is a new day. Because if you're stuck in the past, if you're wrapped around the axle on what you've done in the past, you can never move forward. You can never grow into the next version of yourself that the world needs. And so taking accountability is one thing, but moving on beyond them and owning that mistake and moving on is part of life. So ensure that you're doing that. And from this, if you build yourself into this human being that you're desiring to be, keeping your commitments to everybody and to yourself, what that does is it opens up pathways for the universe to kind of deliver on your vision and your desires on what you want out of life. Because if you're a person that sets these massive goals for yourself, and then you've got the inability to get up early and follow through and work out and do what you said you were going to do, and keep your critical task list. If you have the inability to do that, all you're doing is telling the universe that you're actually not worthy of receiving all that you desire. And so once you live in integrity within these terms and you start to build that confidence and you stack those wins and you do what you say you're going to do, like it's not asking too much. It's just recognizing when you're out of alignment. So, like, we all know people who run their mouth a whole bunch and say they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And all they do is talk and they don't actually follow through. The simplicity out of this whole situation is you don't have to do any of that. You just don't open your mouth and say you're going to do anything that you have no intention of doing. And then you start building upon that. So you start out at a very fractional level of like, I am going to do this. And what is this? Like, it may be the smallest thing. And once you go ahead and succeed on that, then you start stacking the wins over and over and over. And what that does is it builds momentum, it builds confidence, it builds success. And you start amplifying out from there, right? So all you have to do is understand that you start small. You don't start out huge. And then you can start compounding just like money, just like the compound effect of everything is that you start building these wins over time and you improve and you tweak and you continue to build upon the human being that you're being. And then next thing you look up and you've achieved everything that you want. You have everything that you want out of life that you're desiring. And all of it happened by not interfering with what's coming your way. Because if you want these beautiful things in life to come your way and achieve all these goals, you can't you can't then tell the universe that you're completely out of integrity and that you're not going to follow through on X, Y, and Z and you don't show up or you show up 71% of the time, which is 5 out of 7 days of the week. Um, it just it creates friction within the universe. And then you end up not getting what you aspire to achieve. So, lesson for the day, do not lie, right? Don't lie, especially to yourself, because we've got years of baggage regarding those lies that we've told ourselves. We have to recognize it and we have to change our percentages, right? So, you can run a test, you can run whatever, a week's worth of capturing the data, um, and then see where you're at starting from this point on. And then from there, what you're going to do is you're going to build good habits and keep your word and follow through, building confidence, building belief in yourself, building a reputation that people would follow you. This builds you into a magnificent leader that is magnetic and attractive to other people to follow because you are a person, you're the stalwart in the community. You're a lighthouse for others, a beacon of at least consistency, right? Because that's what people don't understand about this particular level of follow through. They may not like what you have to say, but they understand that you're going to be consistent because that's how you show up consistently, right? Over and over and over again. They may not like what you have to tell them, but it may be exactly what they need to hear, right? So have a wonderful week. Keep kicking ass. Go chase your goals. Analyze how much you're telling the truth. Follow through always. Be a person of integrity. Build a massive reputation, and everything you want will come your way.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.